Talking with Ron Berry from 3FM and talking about the review into public service broadcasting. The main point that I think that Manx Radio have gone on many times as well, and are they right to say that you entered this market knowing that Manx Radio was a player already and it had everything set up? You come in, you want a piece of their pie, basically, because they are the only ones in well, and Energy FM was already admittedly on the market going in as well. So what do you say to this that you knew what you were taking on when you started?
And I have no problem with that. Let me be very, very clear. I do not want a piece of Manx Radio's pie. I'm not interested.
You want the advertising revenue in the Isle of Man.
No. What the whole discussion document is about and the whole proposal is looking at broadcasting on the Isle of Man and how we deliver our service, not just 3FM, but how the broadcasting service is delivered on the island. And that includes you in terms of what you do. That includes our television, My TV. That includes the radio stations. That includes what comes out online, what comes out from government. The world has changed. So what I'm trying to say is there a better way that we can deliver a better service to the Isle of Man? I'm not. Look,
can the Isle of Man sustain 3 radio stations? I mean, they said their peak is 12,000, which in UK terms is such a small figure.
It is a small figure,
and that would be mandate sort of time, I suppose. When in the mornings you'll have the same sort of peak, won't you?
Well, we do. I mean, we do peak at breakfast. I mean, if you take, for example, the broadcasting day, if you accept that the broadcasting day effectively is really 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. That's the way that broadcasting works, you know. It's and the peak at breakfast time when people want news, etc., and then sort of entertainment throughout the day. We have peaks and troughs, just as Manx Radio has peaks and troughs. You know, they have quite sharp peaks and quite.
And it's news driven, I should imagine, isn't it? Would you say?
What, Manx Radio?
Manx Radio is a news driven. People switch to Manx Radio for the news.
In the mornings, obviously, you've got there is more information that Manx Radio is able to broadcast. Because yes, it is. I mean, it is.
Although it has to be said that the radar they use covers AM and FM, I think. So. Well, it's a bit misleading. I don't know exactly how many people listen to Mandate, how many listen to the breakfast show, but they get 12,000 as a pool of the two services.
Don't separate that figure at all. They count that as one station.
So some are listening on AM to the breakfast show music, and some are listening to FM. So that's a mixture of two. Is that how you read it? Because I mean, I don't know how Radar is that.
It is a mix of two, but Radar just count that as one figure with the way that Radar do the research. You can agree or disagree with Radar, but the fact is it's the only recognised research for radio that we have, so we have to then take that on board. But let me just go back to the point of people thinking that I'm looking for a slice of Manx Radio.
Well, they do think that.
But it's not true. 3FM runs very well. It's a very tight operation. It delivers a product that obviously shows that there is a need in the market, or there is a demand for it in the market, because our radar figures tell us that. This is all about looking at broadcasting for the Isle of Man to say, is there a better way that we can keep this together and run it through efficiencies of scale?
And what is it about ex-Manx Radio staff that seems to be disaffected? I'm talking about Dewan Turner, with his involvement with Energy, initially started off a radio station. Then you wanted your own train set, so you go and start one up. You got George Ferguson involved. I mean, I'm ex-Manx Radio as such. It's still in the broadcasting thing. Do you not think that you really just want to run Manx Radio, and because you think you could run it better, if nothing else?
Look, let me repeat what I said. This is about broadcasting to our community, to our nation, and making the best of what we already have, and making it more efficient, make it run more efficiently. We are in economic times where things are difficult. So when things are difficult, there are going to be cutbacks. We're seeing all sorts of cutbacks in government now. So you have to look for efficiencies. Now, if you can utilise a pool of resources that give you better efficiency for less money, then it's got to be worth considering.
Energy FM licence was up recently. You didn't apply for it? You didn't want it? You're happy the arrangement you got and sharing?
We formed a strategic alliance last year, which works very well for us. That means that Energy came into our facility. Their studios are now in our building.
Their news is your news. It's the same thing.
Well, what we do with news is we have a news pool. And you know, in the discussion document, what I was trying to say, certainly if you think about news, was right. You've got to consider, and if you look at radar figures, you will understand that Energy caters for a younger end of the market. 3FM has its marketplace, and Manx Radio, when you look at their radar figures, the majority of their listeners are 55 plus. So you have three demographics in terms of in terms of the listening audience. Now, if you have a pooled newsroom, you then there's only so much news that goes on, but you can then take that news as a pool and then you deliver it in different ways that's fit for the audience. So if you said Energy's audience is younger, you would deliver the news like a tabloid, like The Sun, for example. In terms of 3FM's news, that would be delivered in like a Daily Mail type tabloid format. And then for Manx Radio, you get more in depth and more serious, so you're like a Daily Telegraph.
You're going to get rid of all the Manx Radio staff. You're going to leave them with 5 people, according to what you said. If I read that right, and it seemed to look that way, and that's how they commented back to me the other day. 5 people to do rolling news all day long.
Well, that's not strictly true. They misquoted the figures there. In fact, the news pool, the newsroom in terms of the pool, would comprise, under the discussion document, and again it's a discussion document, of around about 8 people, which would be made up of freelance and permanent staff.
So they run the news hub would be running all 3 radio stations with the same sort of news, but different amounts of it in different forms for different audience.
And for tailored to
so it'd be really one news radio centre on the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked for ages. Everyone's interested in this. I have to say, I mean, we get a massive amount of hits, so I know people are interested, and I don't want to feel that I'm just on this because it's an interest to me. But let's finally talk about the bolt out the blue, and it seemed to be when it was announced at the committee that Man was going to come over to look into it. Now, it's turned out it's John Myers, who is the guru of radio. I mean, this guy, I remember from Border TV, do you remember him doing the continuity, Uncle John?
Indeed, yeah.
And then he CFM, and then he Granada Media, and Guardian Media, and the other stations that he joined. I mean, it was a massive amount of money. You've read his book, I've read his book. We bigged him up now. But seriously, I mean, this guy knows radio in and out.
Absolutely.
What do you think to him being appointed to come in? And I think he's just going to look around Manx Radio, isn't he, for some days?
I don't know. I mean, the first that I heard that John Myers was coming in was via the videos that you put out. So that was the first I was aware. I would hope that he will come and talk to us. I will hope that I'd be able to look at the discussion document. For him to make his assessment of whether he sees any merit in what I'm trying to propose or put forward for discussion. And he's a professional, so if he's taken notice of, then that's the main thing. I mean, don't forget, you've had various reports on Manx Radio costing varying amounts of money, from £400,000 that I would.
But the models were different then. I mean, this guy, as I said, he knows his onions. I mean, absolutely. Whatever he says will be quite interesting. Would you not?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I mean, we have to accept, Paul, that we are living in a different world. We're living in a different age. We're living in a different technological age now. This device now can do so much more than it could 5 years ago. When you look at iPad, when you look at iPods, when you look at all of the different delivery systems that one is able to consume a whole range of music, it leaves local radio, not just on the Isle of Man, but local radio all over the UK, in a situation whereby it is losing market share. But local radio is really important to the local market. That's where people will turn to, not just local radio, but to what's happening. If you look at Facebook, for example, look at what happens with Facebook. Facebook is a global reach. But how do people use Facebook? They use it in their own communities. So this is all about community and making it better.
Okay, well, we'll be talking again. I mean, you haven't actually got your date to give your evidence, and we'll see what happens on that one. I'm a bit surprised you haven't actually, but maybe they wait and tell you, because obviously it's an ongoing thing. And no doubt there'll be more on this story. Thank you, Mr. Berry.
You're very welcome.